everyone, I'm Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a book review on Black Skies Riviera by Catherine Wiltcher. So this book was interesting. It is a dark contemporary romance, and I like dark romances, and this one was interesting. So I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, but it's growing on me. It's weird. I don't know. I am going to read what it is about so you get an idea, and we can dive in and we can talk about it. So it says, an arranged marriage, mafia romance where love is a debt no sinner can pay. Isa Dubova is the queen of cloudy diamonds, a Bratva princess, my reluctant new wife, a pretty bargain in exchange for the names of the men who killed my father. I'm a black suit of spades, determined to bury both her and my demons. I never asked to see the shape of her heart. I never asked for her to fill the blank spaces of mine. But the mafia wants her secrets. I'm not the first she betrayed. And Isa, sweet, not so innocent Isa, she's now a debt no sinner can pay. So this book is an enemies to lovers romance, and I do like those. I don't always seek them out, but I was really in the mood for one. I can't even remember why at this point, but I was really in the mood for one, and I came across this book and I was like, ooh, heck yes. I love Russian mafia romances for sure. This one was interesting because it had Russian mafia, it had Italian mafia, and it took place in France, I think. Yeah, it took place in France. Totally different. I've never read a book like that before. And this book, it was good. It wasn't like the best I've ever read. But the funny thing is when I finished reading it, which it's been a few weeks now, and I wrote out my little, what I thought about it and stuff, and I had a lot to say. It was mostly like, this was a good book in terms of like, it grabbed my interest right away. I couldn't put it down. The sex scenes were super hot and steamy. There were so many good things about it, but there were other things about it where I was just like, that just, it's the reason why I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars. When I finished reading this book, there were a few things about it that made me kind of think like, this one was okay, right? So, there was a lot of politics going on. It was complicated. Surprisingly, this book, there was, which was funny because when I read romance novels where there's a lot of other things going on, like politics, where sometimes that can bore me because it's like I'm here for the romance, But this one was weirdly good at keeping that romance throughout the whole thing, but at the same time, kind of like jam-packing it full of politics, business, mafia business, and it was really complicated. Like, if I had really taken my time and kind of been slow about it and really paid attention, I probably could have followed along more. But I wasn't skimming the book, but I was reading fast, and those parts I weren't paying as close attention to. But there were so many names and relationships and in very like unique relationships, complicated, a lot of stuff in the past, all these names, so many things happened. And it's like a lot of history, a lot of business, a lot of that stuff to keep track of. And at the time I was reading this book, I'm like, I'm here for the romance. Like, I don't really care about all this. But I kept expecting that to take a back seat, and it never did. It was a big part of the story. So I felt kind of like, there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of, it was confusing at times, honestly. I mean, so many, and it felt kind of like a chess game. There was so many different moving pieces, so many different motives. There were so many different, like, one character could be playing like 3 different angles, and trying to balance that and keep that in your mind, you know, like, okay, this character is undercover, but at the same time undercover for her family, but at the same time really falling in love with the guy, you know, like there's just these layers. And at the time I was reading this, I was like, this is complicated, not boring, but just not what I was interested in at the time. But it was complicated, and I just kind of skimmed over it. So there's a chunk of the book I definitely missed out on, because I have a feeling that if I had paid attention and really paid it, like, I feel like I could have gotten more out of that part of it. But so there's that. I think that was probably my biggest hang up. So basically I didn't think I liked it that much, but as the weeks have gone on, I can't stop thinking about this book, which is funny to me because it keeps coming up. I keep thinking about all these little things that happened in the book that have stayed with me and kind of like grown on me. And I am falling in love with the book way after I'm finished reading it, which is just so weird to me. This doesn't really happen to me. But I will say the things I loved about this book. Okay, now the chemistry. The chemistry between the hero and the heroine, top notch, super hot. There was a lot of, I did really like their enemies to lovers. They did that so well. And usually I'm not crazy about that because I personally really don't like being angry and frustrated and annoyed. And sometimes these enemies to lovers books can make me that way. I get real frustrated and angry with the hero usually, or it could be the heroine too. Yeah, but no, this was done well. This was done well. And you know what this writer was so good at, which is funny because now I think I want to read more of her books. This writer is a naturally talented writer. You can tell because she has this talent for being able to weave in throughout the book these inside jokes. Now, they're not jokes really, but you know those things, those little very specific things that just kind of evolve when you're in a relationship, like little inside jokes, little things you say to each other, little, you know, like where someone else was listening in, they'd be like, what are they talking about? But them two know, they know. Oh my God, there were so many of those little things, which made me fall in love with this couple because of their little, I don't know, it felt so genuine, it felt so real, and it really made me fall in love with them. Like and then there's this one thing about that automatically endeared this book to my heart, which is the fact that the main guy, so his name is Aiden Knight, and he is known, so I'll tell you a little bit about the book. I mean, I know I read the synopsis, but it doesn't really say anything too clearly. So basically, here's the gist. So Aiden Knight is this millionaire, billionaire guy who lives in France. He owns a casino, but he's also deeply involved with the Mafia. I believe it's the Italian Mafia, but he also works with the Russian Mafia really closely. This man is dark. I mean, he is, his parents were brutally murdered when he was a teenager. So he went to this guy. I can't remember how. Somehow this guy was related to the family in a way. And this man, and Aiden went there because he knew that he could help him find the men who brutally killed his parents. And the guy was like, yeah, I'll help you, but you have to be in this for the long haul. You have to come work for me. And in return, I will, train you and make you money, and eventually you'll get your revenge. And so they agree on that. And so all these years later, he is this billionaire, dark playboy, who his only focus in his life is to find the names of the people who killed his parents and get revenge. That's all he cares about. So he ends up getting into an arranged marriage with a Bratva princess, which is the daughter of a Russian mafia, like Don. I forgot what they call them. Not Dons, but they call them something else. And she's just a pawn, right? And these two get together and it is explosive. I mean, they don't like each other at first. She's holding secrets, he's holding secrets. It's complicated, my goodness. Her whole thing is she's largely protecting her sister. The whole reason why they're marrying her off to this guy is because she knows the location of her sister, and her sister bailed because her sister was supposed to marry some dude, and she was like, nope, and she left. And they know that Issa knows where she's at, and they tortured her and stuff, and she wouldn't give up the location. So her whole thing is protecting her sister, and at the same time just trying to survive. You know, she's grown up in this Bratva world, but it's been real lonely for her because, like, from the outside looking in, she just looks like this spoiled princess who wears designer clothes. But on the inside, I mean, yes, that's true. She's been taken care of monetarily, and yes, she's got designer clothes and stuff, but she lives in a private hell. I mean, she's alone. Her family barely pays any attention to her. She's nothing but a pawn to be used in business, and she has no, like, rights of her own. You know what I mean? Like, no one, it's terrible. So they get into this arranged marriage, and it's hostile, and it's great. There's politics. There's all these secrets that become unraveled. Lots of action. I mean, it's pretty great. It's actually a really great story. And his nickname, he's known as the Raven because of his black soul and all this other shit. But I loved that, okay? If you're a literary person, which you probably are if you're watching this, I think you can maybe understand the significance of the raven as a symbol in literature. I personally am obsessed with ravens. I like darker themed things, so I've always loved the symbolism of the raven, especially like Edgar Allan Poe, you know, darker things like that. And I've been wanting to get, I don't have any tattoos, but I've been wanting to get a raven tattoo on my forearm right here. And I have this idea I found on Pinterest, which I'll show it right here. And this freaking picture appeared in the book as like the little like symbols kind of like on top of chapter headers. And I was like, oh my God, I love this book. Like just from that. So there was that. But then there's all these little things that this author put in there that just made me fall madly in love with these characters. Like there's just all these little inside jokes kind of, and they're beautiful. But you know what else was actually really hard that I didn't like about this book was the writing was very dense. So not only is it true that yes, there was a lot of business talk, a lot of politics, a lot of layers, it was hard to keep track of, even if I were paying 1,000% attention to that, which I wasn't. But even on top of that, not the dialogue, but like just the words, just the writing itself is very dense. It's very metaphorical. It can be real hard to kind of, if you're looking for a quick read, I don't know if this is it for you, but if you're looking for something where there's like meaning and things, and maybe you like digesting and really taking apart a few sentences here and there, you might like this book because it had a lot of like symbolism, metaphors, and just the way that they spoke, even to each other, to themselves. So it's funny, like all those things kind of irritated me while I was reading them, but like now looking back, I'm like, these are the kinds of things I love. Like I love dissecting stuff like that. So I have a feeling I'll probably end up rereading this book. But overall, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars when I finished reading it on Goodreads, but now I think I might bump that up to 4. It's still true about the things that bothered me about the book, but I don't know. There's just something about this book that sticks with me. Maybe it's because it's quite different from the Mafia romances I usually read, you know, like this takes place in a totally different country, which usually they take place in America, at least the ones that I've read. And there was all these languages, the business aspect. Oh my God, it was so complicated. Like, and maybe that's part of why this story is sticking with me, is because the author made it feel so real. And maybe it was all the details, maybe it was the intricacies, all of the people, all of the characters, the relationships, the very, like, you know what it felt like when I was reading this book? It felt like I was like on the 8th book in a series where you need to read them all. But not in a way like I'm missing shit. It's just, it feels like all of this past history I'm learning in this book takes place in other past books, you know, where it's summed up nicely so you understand what's going on, but all of this happened. But it's not. I'm pretty sure this is the first book in the series. So I don't know, but maybe that's what it was. Maybe it's the world building, you know, like everything was a little different about this book. Like, for example, they lived on a yacht. Like, I've never read a romance novel like that. Usually they live in a mansion or some kind of big warehouse or something like that in a city. No, this takes place in like the French Riviera, like on the water. He lives in a yacht. Like, largely this book takes place on a yacht in a giant casino and a little bit here and there in France. So that's kind of different. Also, the intricacies. I don't think I've ever read a contemporary romance that had this much about the business. You know, I've read some where there's business plays a big part, but not nearly to this degree. I mean, my goodness. And I wonder if it's the characters too, because it's not just the hero and the heroine. You know, it wasn't just Aiden and Issa. I keep wanting to say Isa. And Issa, Aiden and Issa. It wasn't just them two. They have all of these very interesting characters that they didn't feel stereotypical. They didn't feel flat. They felt intricate and complicated, like how real people are. And so I found myself falling in love with all these other people too. These background characters, you know? I can't tell you how many times, I don't know, it'll just pop into my head. Like, and this is, this might be controversial to say, but this reminds me a little bit of how I felt about Twilight. So I first read Twilight, was I in high school? I think I was like a junior or senior in high school when I first read Twilight. So I was like 12, 13 years ago. And I remember when I was finished reading all of the Twilight books, I remember, even now sometimes, but for years afterward, there was so much about that story that felt so real and felt so, it definitely had a soft spot in my heart. And I can't tell you how many times I was like, I wonder what Bella and Edward are doing right now. Or just stupid shit like that, like with the other characters and stuff. I don't know, they just felt so real. Like, they're out there, still living their lives. I just don't know what's going on, you know, because there's no more books written, but they're out there. So, you know, it kind of felt like that. And I get that very same feeling about this book. Like, I think about them and, like, what are they doing now? You know, where are they now? And I just have these flashbacks to all these little moments in the book that are very comforting and very like special to me, which is so random because, I mean, no offense to this book, but it's a dark contemporary romance. Sure, I like these. They can be so good. I love them. It's a guilty pleasure. But it's not the kind of those books aren't the kind of books that stay with me or like become special to me. Those are more like literature books or just kind of, I don't know. But usually those don't stick with me. But I don't know, there is something about this book that I still keep thinking about and I still keep wondering about and I still keep remembering and smiling fondly, and I'm like, this is weird. I've never really had this kind of a reaction to a romance novel, especially one that I gave 3 out of 5 stars to. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But whatever. I recommend this book. I do. I really do. despite the negative things I said about it, it's good. It is, like I said, intricate. It's hot. It's steamy. It's shocking. There are twists, and some of the twists are really good. Some of them I did not expect at all, which is always very nice. And has a great ending and a very good storyline. So actually, it was actually a really good book. I highly recommend it. I might read some of her other books. I really might. This one, she came out of left field, and I thought I didn't like it, but I do. So yeah, that's Black Skies Riviera by Catherine Wiltcher. Which again, it's a weird title, Black Skies Riviera. That kind of has nothing to do with the book. Black, maybe, but I mean, it's a dark romance, and he wore a lot of black. Black Skies Riviera. Like, none of that. That's not the name of his yacht. It's not the name of his casino. It's not even the name of the Riviera they were on. Like, that, those words never came up once in the book, which is weird because usually the title somehow makes sense. And this one, it kind of does, because black, sure, Riviera, sure, but Black Skies Riviera, I don't know, it sounds like the name of something, but it's not, which is weird. Especially because it's the first book in a series. I don't know. But yeah, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I think I'm going to bump that up to 4. Maybe. I'm on the fence. No, I'll bump it up to 4. It deserves it, especially because I can't stop thinking about it. So yeah, I highly recommend it. And let me know if you've read this or if you have any other dark romance recommendations. I'm always here for them. So yeah, that's Black Skies Riviera by Catherine Wiltcher. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please like and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.